I think we're live, Shane. You got stage right.
Yep. No. Okay. Hello and welcome. I'll pass on to Ken quickly for a brief introduction, and then we'll get into it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that one, Shane. Hello, everybody. My name is Ken, and I'm from the New Zealand Qualified Bookkeepers Association. And welcome to our webinar on We Can Do This Better, a different take on small business finance. So basically today, FundTap will be hosting this event. So I will leave it with them to let you know about the house rules. But I would actually like to ask you all a quick favor. So after this webinar, I will be sharing a URL in the chat. Would I be able to do that one, Shane, or do I need to send that one over through to you first? Would I be able to just share a link in the chat box later on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So I will do that one later on, and it's going to be our feedback link. So if you could please just answer that and let me know what you think about this event. I'm pretty sure our speakers would love to hear your thoughts as well. All right, so let me introduce our amazing guest speakers today. So this webinar is actually proudly brought to you by one of our premium sponsors, FundTap. So they've recently moved from being a strategic sponsor to a premium one as an active step to show just how much they value and support the bookkeeping community. So thank you so much for that one, FundTap. It shows that they're very committed to being more engaged, more involved, and here to help you succeed. So let's get to know the amazing people from their team. We've got Shane Lawrence, the head of growth. Shane is passionate about developing innovative and tech-focused growth plans with business owners. With experience across business ownership, finance, marketing, and sales, he is uniquely placed to understand the challenges and opportunities each of their clients are faced with. And he's also a keen and passionate sportsman when not trying to throw, again, this is from your word, Shay, not ours, his aging body around most of his time. He is spending it with his family, exploring the outdoors. We've also have Chris Vanderkolk, the growth manager from FundTap. Chris oversees FundTap sales and marketing strategy, bringing experience from over 10 years working in innovative New Zealand technology businesses, spanning sales, partnerships, and marketing. Chris is passionate about brands and products that make a positive difference in their customers' lives and is quick to call out brands that say one thing and do another. And of course, FundTap has also invited a special guest, Irene Bennett, the CEO and founder of Admin Army. Irene launched Admin Army in 2016 to help clients streamline operations and scale effectively. She brings strong strategic and operational leadership with a passion for building empowered teams and delivering exceptional client outcomes. Outside of work, she values balance, enjoying countryside adventures, Harry Potter books, and Lego creation. To talk about We Can Do This Better, a different take on small business finance, let's welcome our amazing speakers.
Hello.
Hi. Fantastic.
Hi.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. And I don't know how we're going to quite follow that introduction, but want to give a quick shout out to Ken and the NZQBA. We've been a partner for a number of years now, and there is no one else quite like Ken out in the bookkeeper community. So just a quick shout out that she's continually looking for ways to provide value and educate and further the bookkeeping community. And we really appreciate the opportunity to talk with some of your membership today. So thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Welcome to everyone. My name is Shane Lawrence, Head of Growth with FundTap. So welcome. It's great to have you all here. So what I'll do, I'll just start with the reality that we all know a little bit too well, and is that most businesses aren't held back by a lack of good ideas, good people, or even the ability to generate cash flow. Generally, they're held back by the timing of that cash flow. So the difference between when money's coming in the door and heading back out. Even in 2025, I guess, the world's a pretty innovative and forward-thinking place at the moment, but small businesses are stuck with traditional finance products that aren't built for the small businesses of today. One thing we know from working with the bookkeeper community over the last few years is that, excuse the term, but you guys are right in the weeds. You're generally seeing the numbers before anyone else, say even before the business owner themselves. So you know when your clients are thriving, and you also know when they're struggling. So today we're going to talk a little bit around that, a little bit around what Irene and Chris see happening in the wider economy, how that relates to specifically you guys as bookkeepers, and what the future of the industry might look at. So just a quick introduction from myself. I'll pass on to Chris first of all, just to provide a bit of context around his background and experience.
Cool. Thank you, Shane. And thank you, everyone, for tuning up for our fireside chat. This is going to go a little bit like a live recording of a podcast between a group of mates. So by all means, at any point, if anyone wants to jump in and ask some questions, please do. This is an open forum. But yes, thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction, Shane. As Shane mentioned, I've been with FundTap for only about 6 months now, and have no background in finance. So I'm not the most qualified person on this podcast when it comes to financial matters or accounting, but that's fine. What that gives me is a fairly unique perspective on maybe how the small business finance sector operates. What I do have is 10 years working in software, and a fair stint to that with New Zealand business, SaaS businesses, so Xero and Figured particularly. And something we are going to talk about a bit today, and the headline of the webcast talks to this is, we think that this whole small business finance thing can be done a lot better. Our take on it is that small businesses are being sold the same financial products that they've been sold for literally hundreds of years, and they're not well suited to solving the ubiquitous problem of small business cash flow timing. And if anything, they make that problem worse. That's what FundTap exists to solve. And that's what you guys do on a daily basis, is you help your clients sort of fix those cash flow timing issues. So that's why we're here to talk. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Chris. And Irene.
Hi, everyone. I'm Irene from Admin Army. Most of you probably have some vague idea of who I am. And effectively, I am just always keen for a yarn. So when Shane and Chris invited me along, I was like, sure, I'll come share some opinions about something. And so that's why I've been brought along. But I am incredibly passionate about the bookkeeping community and the difference that we can make for our clients. And I think, as time goes on, and in the current environment that we're operating in, cash flow is becoming like more and more of an issue for small businesses here in New Zealand. And so I think I feel quite personally aligned with a lot of the stuff that FundTap are doing and what they're working towards. And so yeah, I just think that bookkeepers are right at the coalface and have the ability to make a significant impact in helping our clients see other ways, opportunities for funding some of the needs that they have within their business, especially when there is this big problem of not being paid yourself and the trickle-on effect of that. So yeah, I'm excited to be here to ramble on about that topic a little bit with you all today.
Fantastic, thank you, and pleasure to have you on board, Irene. I did give a little shout out to Ken earlier, but also like to reiterate that for Irene, who from our perspective is tirelessly working in the background in and around the bookkeeper community and what the future looks like. So thanks for coming on board. Ken mentioned around house rules earlier. As mentioned, we're looking for a bit more just of a discussion around thoughts and ideas. Chris and Irene have got their own unique perspectives, and I'll be happy to share them. But in effect, we have no real house rules. So please do feel free to raise your hand on there if you've got a specific question. Pop a chat into the comment section, and we'll look to cover those off as we can. So what to expect today? First of all, we'll look to set the scene a little bit around the truths as we see them in the bookkeeper and small business finance market as it stands, and why cash flow timing is such a universal challenge that a lot of small businesses are facing. We'll then take a bit of a zoom out and get our esteemed guests' views on what's happening in the wider market, small business, and how that's affecting bookkeepers now and into the future, and then what that actually means for you guys on a day-to-day basis. Finally, we'll look forward and again little bit crystal ball gazing, but informed, I guess, thoughts and opinions on what the future of the bookkeeping service and value offering might look like there. We'll run a couple of live polls as we go, so I'd appreciate a participation in them. Click the answer that most resonates with you, and we'll look to use that for some discussion points as well. So we'll get into it now. I will launch a live poll at the moment. You'll see that pop up on your screen in a second. What's the biggest financial pain point your clients talk to you about? So if you're happy to click the most relevant one there for you and submit.
Wow, let's click off the mark. I've never watched a poll with so much anticipation.
I know, it's so exciting to watch in real time.
9 responses, 13. Oh, we've got a clear winner, guys.
Okay, we'll give you another 5 or 10 seconds to record your answer if you can.
We're waiting on 10 responses, 12. Well, I think we've got statistical significance for a winner here, Shane.
Yep, no, absolutely. So we're seeing about 76% of you, the biggest financial pain point your clients face is cash flow timing. So the fundamental difference between when money's coming in the door and heading back out. So what we'll look to do then, I guess moving on from that, I'll start with you, Irene. Where do you see the traditional role of a bookkeeper in supporting small businesses and cash flow timing? What's that looked like in the past? Has there been any impact or ability for them?
So I think, if we cast our mind back, 20 odd years ago, I try not to go too much further back than that. Makes me seem quite old. But, there was no such thing as cloud accounting, and the visibility that people had of their cash flow was bank statements and I guess a little bit of hope. Obviously, with the rise of Xero and cloud accounting, that has in itself created additional visibility for people. But like any platform, good data in, good data out, bad data in, trash data out. And so whilst it is, some of these cloud-based platforms are so user-friendly to use, it still requires a level of expertise, which is where a really good bookkeeper comes in and can ensure that that data is kept current and up to date. And in my opinion, if you are doing if you're doing service to your client, you are probably in their accounts, if not every day, at least once a week, and keeping an eye on how things are going, how things are tracking, and that gives you the opportunity to, provide early flags to clients that they might not see themselves. Often a lot of our clients, my very first client was a chef. She got into business because she was amazing at making all of the delicious food. She was not amazing at doing the accounting and that side of things. So my ability to be able to provide her with insights on what was happening in her accounts was a really important part of her business's ongoing success. And often the biggest pain point that I see in clients' accounts is just the number of overdue invoices that they have sitting waiting for payment. We all know that you can set a 7-day payment period or a 20th of the following month, and suppliers just choose their own payment dates. It's quite exciting. And so it's a mystery. And, there are times where that can cause significant concern for business owners around how to finance the business. I can't tell you the number of clients I've had conversations with about how they're paying wages next week if they can't get this big invoice paid or what have you. So I think the reality is that as a bookkeeper, we're in the business on a regular basis with the clients. We have that often first opportunity for visibility that their accountants may not, because accountants might be focusing more on the advisory level or at the year end. And so that's where bookkeepers really have the opportunity to make a difference for clients in terms of helping them better manage their cash flow and even, providing them with solutions that they can consider.
Thanks, Irene. And we'll talk a little bit around possibly what the future looks like, but you've obviously bridged the gap from a shoebox full of invoices and a few bank statements through to Xero coming on board. How much of an impact has that had on bookkeepers' time requirements to get things up to speed and to have an understanding of what your clients look like?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. Like certainly because we can be in, a client's accounting system on a daily basis, keeping things reconciled and up to date, that's, awesome. But the flip side is they might not be delivering their receipts in a shoebox anymore, but you still have to wait for the pile of receipts to be scanned or photoed to get through to the system. And so it is also about making sure that you are working with your client to find the most efficient way to get all of the data that you need. So it certainly allowed bookkeepers to move from, charging hourly for data entry effectively to being able to actually, provide package-based pricing based on value that they're delivering.
Okay, it's quite an interesting transition with regards to how value is perceived.
Yes,
and,
absolutely. Yeah, and the number of I shudder whenever somebody says to me, "Oh no, I don't want my clients to use HubDoc because then I can't charge them hourly for all my data entry." If you're that sort of bookkeeper, there's probably please hit me up afterwards, and I'm happy to give you a lecture on why that is the wrong way to operate.
Thanks, Irene. And Chris, I'd actually be interested in your take. Obviously, you spent a lot of time with Xero and Figured and developing the partner space for them, and then coming across with FundTap. I guess your insights on the advisory, bookkeeping sector, small business clients, finance, and how you've seen that develop over the last 10 years.
Yeah. So I think firstly, it's been interesting how this whole conversation around shift to advisory and the role of the accountant or bookkeeper has evolved over 10 years. And as I say, like I'm an outsider, I guess, as far as the accounting sector goes, but kind of an interested observer. And I think also there's a parallel outside of the accounting sector to essentially any service industry where technology and software has changed the nature of that delivery. So there's a direct parallel between the role of an accountant with Xero and the role of a designer with Shopify, for example. Those two things are exactly the same, where software's come along, it's fundamentally changed the way, or not changed the way things are done, but changed how accessible it is or who could do it. And it's required those people who have typically owned that domain to figure out how they step up or step forward or use these tools to be better at what they're actually uniquely good at. And so I think one of my observations, stepping out of the kind of the whole Xero accounting finance ecosystem and then back into it in the last 6 months is it seemed like the first thing to happen was, because of cloud technology, I can be more efficient. I can continue doing this thing, but I can do it more efficiently. Therefore, I can do more of it, charging the same price, and make more margin. And I think that in itself did create a unique opportunity for bookkeepers to go from only being able to look after 1 or 2 clients, having to be on site, to now being able to look after 100 clients or 50 or however many, working from home and flexibly. So certainly that efficiency piece paved the way to, or created the opportunity to do something else. But then there was a jumping off point where I think the industry then, as the industry, I mean, accountants, bookkeepers, but also any service industry that's gone through the same thing, had a decision to make and go, well, do I stay in this comfortable, happy place doing more efficiently, or do I now actually lean into this opportunity to do something better and different because this other area is largely taken care of? And it seemed like, when I was watching this as an observer or as a marketer or whatever else, 10 years ago, there were a few different ways to cut it. And one of the ways that people tried to cut it was to sort of become or like productize advice or productize expertise, which I think didn't work, if I'm completely honest. Going, we're going to put a framework or a script around how to be an advisor. And I think you saw this where where accounting firms or and software providers themselves thought, okay, cool, we can take this piece of software that is specific for an industry. Take Vend as a good example of this, and it's going, can we sell this for accountants? And the initial obvious thing was, oh, now I can figure out how to give my retail customers good advice because I've got retail software and I can use the data, etc., etc. And I think there's some validity in that. But the reality is, to give good advice to a retailer, you actually have to know retail, not retail software. And then even if you know that, every retailer you're talking to is going to be different. The framework, the business model is going to be relatively consistent. But what it means is that it's not just the industry, it's also the individual you're talking to. And I think having stepped away from it, come back in, one of the things I've noticed in more of the conversations we're having is advisory in its truest sense, advice, trust, recommendations, isn't actually that scalable in a traditional model. You can't have one partner who owns all the clients being the owner of that client relationship and saying that's scaled advisory. I think what has to happen, and what has to happen for advisory to become scalable, is the traditional owner of a client relationship has to hand that relationship and the ownership of that relationship over to the person who's actually turning up and having the conversations, because it's that face-to-face, one-to-one relationship where people figure out what actually needs to change here or what actually needs to happen. Because absolutely, you can look at the numbers and find that, oh, there's a cash flow gap. But what might actually be going on is that there's fear, or there's stress, or there's a business owner who's got a really, really strong sense of obligation to pay their bills on time. And so they'll sacrifice other things to make sure that happens. And you're not going to figure that out with a scaled, templated approach to advisory services. And so I think what the biggest insight I've seen, and it's actually really, I think it's really exciting and really promising, is actually at its core, advisory is humanity. It's sitting down, it's listening to people, it's being empathetic, but having the domain expertise to go, based on what I'm hearing, here's how I can solve your problem. And I relate it to a GP, for example, a doctor. I go and see my GP when I need to. As I get older, I probably go and see them more regularly. But I've also started to figure out that if I see my GP on a sort of a regular basis, do regular check-ins, it's a net positive. But actually, the sense I get from going to see my GP is a sense of kind of trust, or things are okay. Here's a person who knows what's going on, but they also listen to what I'm saying. And I honestly believe that where advisory starts to evolve into is a complete paradox to where accounting's come from, which is less robotic and more human.
And I guess we're seeing that with information, and the actual data itself has been served up on a plate, which actually allows the human part to sit in there. I'd be quite interested in your take, Irene, on Chris's thoughts around productization of advisory, and possibly sitting in the seat where the barriers have been for bookkeepers to have conversations beyond, can you upload your receipts for XYZ?
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is actually bookkeepers owning their position in their client's business. So they are innately a trusted partner because they have access to all of the financial information and those sorts of things. I think, I agree with a lot of what Chris was saying around the productization of advisory. And if you're just following a template from A to Z and going through that with a client, you do miss out on a lot of the intricacies of that business. But also, who then are you serving? Are you serving yourself and your business because that's the easiest way for you to sell a product? Or are you actually serving the client who has all of their own unique requirements and needs? So I think that the balance is somewhere in between that. Like, obviously, you need to have a format and some guardrails, but also I think it really does come from that. Like, the real magic comes from the innate understanding of that client's particular business. And my controversial opinion is that I've always struggled with accountants who have never owned businesses providing advisory to business owners, purely because they have never been the ones that are lying awake at night wondering how to pay the wages. And so how can you give advice when on certain subjects when you have never really been in that position yourself, and understand, like you said, Chris, you might be somebody who prioritizes paying your bills on time because that's an important part of your personal integrity and how you operate. And so it's, that's where bookkeepers, because we are looking after our clients on a regular basis, and some of our clients that we work with, we're having like daily calls with them or weekly calls with them to find out what's going on, what are the priorities, what's changed. And actually it's those things that you can't productize that, because you can sell an hour of a meeting, like that's about as productized as that gets, but it really is about gathering those insights in those conversations. And then one of the things that I find is, because Admin is a team, we then have the ability of the wider team to tap into that wider knowledge base. But that's also where things like NZQBA are really great, because if you don't have a team, there's still somewhere that you can tap into a wider knowledge base and make sure that the solutions or suggestions you're making to your clients do actually take into account those intricacies.
A couple of real key points there, and I think that bookkeepers themselves are more in tune with the actual heartbeat of a business, what's happening, what's working, what's not, than your traditional advisor network. And the way a lot of bookkeepers are structured is they are small business owners themselves. They've stayed awake at night wondering, when they're going to get paid, how they're going to take care of this bill. So there's a inherent empathy with business owners, and a lot of the more successful bookkeepers we've worked with have started with asking the questions, by actually talking to your clients and getting an understanding of their issues, how they've solved them, where they've fallen over. Because then the next logical step, when you're having a conversation with someone, becomes, I actually know John who dealt with the problem this way and it worked for him. So it's an iterative process, but you can actually add value over a period of time. So, and I guess probably leads us to the next stage. If we look at around the wider picture, macroeconomic, what are the forces at play that are affecting what small business finance and bookkeeping's role within that look like? Chris, I'll go to you to start. I guess, what factors are at play as you've seen them coming in with open eyes that are actually affecting small business finance at the moment?
Okay. Well, let's jump over to the economics desk, Shane, and over to you, Cameron, too. Jokes aside, there's some things that we've sort of observed, and again, outside of perspective, right? So you can test these things as fact, I think. One thing we know when it comes to small business finance is over the last few years, banks in New Zealand and Australia, but we're focused on New Zealand right now, are pulling back and have pulled back from small business lending. That's well documented. Particularly that's led by ANZ and Westpac, and with the lion's share of the market, that has driven a downward trend over the last few years in small business lending. And any of you guys who have ever tried to help a client get finance from the bank will know that A, it's a lot of work to do it in the first place, and two, it's not easy. Not just the quantity of work, but the struggle of getting it done. So that's what's going on, right? What that's created though is a void and a gap, and that gap, again, we know is being filled by alternative lenders, of which FundTap is one, right? So we're in this camp. It's also being filled by particularly the likes of BizCap, Prosper, and ScotPack. And not to throw shade at other brands and businesses, it's not the right thing to do. But they've really gained from that void. And if I'm putting my opinion hat on, or my critical hat, is they haven't won market share by being better. They won market share because the market has been underserved. And so the reality is that most alternative lenders are still actually providing the same traditional forms of finance, a term loan, an overdraft in the form of a line of credit, or as we also know, the traditional form of invoice finance. And the scary bit is that one of the reasons the banks have pulled back is because they've been so heavily regulated post 2008 economic situation. But the commercial lending space has not been. And so you've got this void that not only has created opportunity, but it's almost created an unlevel playing field for where the banks are underserving because it's too costly to do it, and the opportunity for alternative lenders is just pretty much carte blanche, have at it, do what you want. And what we also know is that growing businesses like alternative lenders need distribution. They need channel to market. This is where the market hack comes on. You go, well, what's the path of least resistance? And you find whoever is most willing to sell your thing, regardless of what. And what we've seen is a big influx into the broker space, which has traditionally been a really, really important role of putting small businesses or businesses together with lenders and finding the best outcome for all parties. Sorry. Yep. And so we've seen this growth of people entering the brokerage sector without strong financial backgrounds, and they're largely incentivized to sign loans and sell debt. And again, it's not throwing shade at the people in the mix. It's sort of just the situation has occurred that way. But then on top of all of that, what we know is small businesses are going through a pretty tough time. We're seeing the ATO debt and the IRD debt across New Zealand and Australia is growing with small businesses every day. The small business cash flow loans post-COVID, the terms on most of those ran out last month. And then we also know we're just working in a pretty tricky financial economy right now. And so you've got this situation where the well-regulated sector is not serving the market, an unregulated sector is serving the market. There are more and more people stepping into the intermediary role or the advisor role who don't really have the commercial background or necessarily the skin in the game, selling products that are not really fit for purpose, because solving a 60-day cash flow timing issue with a 24-month loan is just not sensible. And I think that all of that comes home to roost on the small business owners. That's where the pinch point is, because there's a lot of pressure being piled on.
Well, there seems to be quite a few factors at play there. I'd be interested in your take, Irene, from admin army perspective, and that you would have done a lot of work in helping small business owners gain finance, and that financials need to be up to date, that side of things, and just the impact some of these wider changes have had on your clients and what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, while you were speaking, Chris, I recalled a recent example, and it's actually an example that we ended up referring on to you guys at FundTap. So product placement there. But they were talking to an alternative lender for some invoice financing and going through the process of that. And, just as a starting point, like before we get into any other part of it, they had to pay a $3,000 administration fee just to sign up and get on the books. And I just think fundamentally, to me, it feels absolutely wrong to be charging somebody up front when you're trying to help solve a cash flow issue. Like, that is the opposite of solving a cash flow issue. And so, and I think also, so often alternative lenders are the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, where if you're able to actually be working with your client and having those regular conversations and keeping track of how cash flow is flowing and things like that, there are a lot of opportunities to build fences at the top of the cliff so that they're not then beholden to alternative finance options. And I think that is where the real magic for a bookkeeper in helping their clients manage their cash flow can actually really happen, because then they have a plan in place. They don't have to use the plan, but they have the plan if they need it, because you never wake up one morning and go, yeah, I'm going to go find some 20 grand of alternative finance for fun. Like, it's always because there's a need, right? And so if you've actually got a solution in place before you need it, then that takes half of the pressure away from what is a really stressful position. And I mean, we have clients who, we've got a construction client who regularly takes on work from insurance companies. So they love that kind of that workflow, because it's guaranteed work for them. Disasters keep happening. I don't know if that's a good thing to celebrate, but
It's reality.
It is reality. And so there's a steady workflow. They're trusted by the insurance provider, but the insurance provider pays out like 60 days after the job is completed. And so the builder has, paid the staff, bought the materials, done all of the things, and they don't get the cash and any of the profit until 60 days later. And so they're actually financing the rebuild of or the repair of some of these things. And that just to me seems wrong. And so that's where they then suddenly go, crap, how am I paying wages next week? I'm going to go talk to somebody who I'm just going to call them a loan shark, so then I don't accidentally name any names, but I'm going to go talk to a loan shark and pay too much in interest, and like that's going to eat up my profit margin, but I've managed to survive another week. And I think that so often small business owners get stuck in that survival trap, and that is what is taking away from their ability to actually grow the business, or not have to work 7,000 hours in a week and all of those sorts of things. And if there was a little bit of proactive planning around how some of these things are managed, their life would become fundamentally better.
I think we're at risk of going so far over time, but I think something that's worth just noting there is that finance is not a bad thing.
No.
This is literally how the economy works. It's based on the basic idea that tomorrow will be better than today, and that's based on the idea of taking a punt. And small business owners, they take punts every single day. But the problem is it's not whether or not finance should be used, it's whether or not you've got a tool that's fit for purpose. And I guess the opinionated take is that most finance that's available to small business owners is designed for lenders, not the people that are borrowing it. It's not designed for the people. It's not designed as a product to suit small business owners.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the bookkeeping community, being in the weeds, is seeing more and more of what's in their clients' accounts and what's coming through. So I'll throw another quick poll out to the audience here. If you're happy to put something in just around what you've noticed in your clients' accounts recently. Are you seeing a rise of alternative lenders? So if you're happy to pop your thoughts into that, please.
Second most anticipated poll of the day.
You're way too excited watching the poll results, Chris.
I am. I'm so curious. Live data. It's a great thing. All right. I think we've got close to enough to get a bit of a trend.
Yep. There we go. So
cool.
18%. Most of them have some form of alternative lender in there. 53% on occasion as well, which I imagine is quite a big change to what we were seeing, 12, 24, 36 months ago. And again, we're at risk of having conversations where, in theory, yep, sounds fantastic, but I guess getting down to bookkeepers themselves, dealing with small clients, day-to-day businesses. Over to you, Irene, to start with. But how and where do bookkeepers add the most value when they're in the weeds of their clients' financial data on from a practical basis?
Yeah, so I think some of it becomes about just looking at the entire client holistically. So you might, as a bookkeeper, be, working with your client to do bank rec and AP, and that's all you're doing, bank rec and AP. AR is not your problem. The client's managing it. That's all good. However, you're the person doing AP. You're creating batch payments, and those you're uploading the batches for approval, and the next day you go in and the batch has not been approved. Oh gosh, what has happened? Why? Funnily enough, 9 times out of 10 it's cash flow, and so it's actually about having those proactive conversations. But at the same time, you might not be contracted to them for AR, but you have access to their accounting software, and you can see the big red overdue $100,000 invoice, I can't tell you the number of times that, like, because quite often in the batch that we're trying to pay is the admin army invoice. So I'm not entirely without motive in this, but often I'll say, hey, do you want me to give your supplier a call just to see when they might be planning on, or your person, I'll see on when they might be planning to pay you. And so that's like just one really little practical thing that it shows the clients that you care, and it helps to build that trust with you. But then it goes, and then that then creates the opportunity to go further and start to talk more about cash flow and offer those additional services. So like, okay, I just do your AP and bank rec, but would it be useful if I gave you a weekly cash flow, screen snapshot of where you're at? And starts there, and then from there it's like, oh well, I can see you're going to have a bit of a lull in 4 weeks' time based on all of this information. Is there another, is there a way that we can proactively provide a solution so you're not worrying about it on the day? And so it's really about just you're in the day-to-day with the client, and so actually leading into that and not just sticking to your clearly defined scope. Like you should absolutely have your scope and living by that. But at the same time, you have visibility of the other things that often the business owner doesn't, because they don't have a financial mind. That's not how they look at information. And so you have the opportunity to just be like waving the red flag and saying, hey, is this something you want me to look into a little bit more for you? Not only then as a bookkeeper do you have the potential to upsell some additional services for yourself, so you're not entirely without reason for doing it, but at the same time, it's also in your best interest if your client doesn't go tits up. So it's pretty useful on both sides. But for me, I think in this world where everything's becoming more AI, everything's becoming more automated, everything's becoming more rinse and repeat. It's those human relationships that bookkeepers have traditionally been so good at that they really need to lean into and be providing that information and helping their clients better plan for some of those things. And sometimes you can't even plan for it. You don't know what's going to happen in 4 weeks' time. I won't go into my doomsday speech because then we really will be here all day. But the reality is, the more you can help your clients feel prepared, the more they're going to lean into you, and that creates opportunity for you as a bookkeeper as well. But it also has a great impact on the economy, because we actually, in all honesty, I love all of our clients. I would rather that they are keeping the as much of their profit themselves rather than going to alternative lenders and paying way too much in interest or a $3,000 onboarding fee just to get a look in the door.
Yeah, thank you. And there's some quite recurring themes around the human value and adding value where you can based on unique perspective of those small businesses. And probably good segue through to yourself, Chris, around your thoughts on the future of bookkeeping, the rise of AI, and where the real value lays for small businesses from the bookkeeping sector.
Okay, crystal ball, but I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine quickly just to sense check whether my crystal ball 10 years ago was on track. So one of the things I observed a while ago when I was at Xero is it seemed like, particularly in the bookkeeper space, there were two pathways that were going to emerge, because there's a lot of discussion around the role of bookkeepers and their kind of rise and growth and the value they were adding. One pathway seemed like more about essentially advice, more about helping someone run their business and make decisions, and the other pathway seemed more about technology and implementation and systems, because there's sort of a natural divergence in skills, I guess, between those two things. And bookkeepers were at the coalface of both of those things. And I think what's fascinating is that looking back now from that point to now, that seems to have happened. There seems to be this growth of businesses, whether led by people with a bookkeeping background or led with people from an accounting background or something else entirely, of systems integrators and businesses that are specialists in that, or teams within businesses that are specialists in systems integration. And then the other piece is obviously stepping in and being the person that helps the small business owner. My take on it is that the bookkeepers that have stayed in that that sort of helping clients on a day-to-day basis, helping them run their business, they are already doing advisory. That is what's going on. And I think that the divergence, the split, is really about a natural inclination to say systems thinking. So, let's call it a typical IQ, and a natural inclination towards kind of human, emotive, psychological thinking, which is EQ, right? Now, obviously, you've got both, you're cranking, but where I see the future of this going is that those who have the technical knowledge, they understand how to read a balance sheet and a P&L. Most business owners don't. They understand how a business model works, but then they can layer over that human, unique human capability. They're not only going to be more and more valuable in the future. I think that's the one thing that AI doesn't seem to be able to do, which is think laterally, think creatively, read people's faces and go, what do you need? Because at the end of the day, and any parent on the phone call will know this, is that more often than not, it's a sense of connection or a sense of belonging that actually gives people peace of mind. And if you can do that and also tell them how to read their balance sheet, you are indispensable. That's where I think it's going.
Oh, fantastic. Actually, I'll just throw it over the audience again for one final poll, and I will change the wording of this. I've said, do you currently offer proactive cash flow advisory to your clients? And I guess what I'd like to caveat this as is, are you offering value already to your clients beyond balancing the books? Is this something you're doing at all at the moment?
Okay, let's go.
Cool. Few
You're well placed.
Yes,
you're in the box seat.
Yep. So a few of you obviously adding value to your businesses, which is going to become more and more important as data becomes more automated through technology. Most of you occasionally, few not yet but interested, and others not part of our services. Irene, I'd be interested in your take, putting you on the spot. For those no, not part of our services, not yet but interested, and occasionally, for those that either feel uncomfortable or uncertain around how to start that process or how to have those conversations or how to actually raise it with the business owner that you've spotted a red flag, how would you go about it if you're just looking to either start or expand on that journey?
So I think it really, again, leaning into the relationship side of it, and it is as simple as, saying, hey, do you want to catch up for a coffee? Do you want to have a half an hour call just to check in and see how things are going? Like actually proactively reaching out to the client, not saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your cash flow management, because that's generally going to get their back up pretty quickly. But by actually, going in soft and creating the opportunity to engage in that human factor. And then I find that 9 times out of 10, if that's the approach you take, it naturally comes out because you've come to them, you're checking in about how things are going. Is there anything else I can help you with? What are the challenges you're facing at the moment? I personally don't know any business owner in New Zealand that would not say cash flow is a current challenge. So it naturally evolves from there. And then from there, it can be as simple as saying, hey, I might know somebody that you can talk to, or, if you don't feel comfortable doing that yourself, in front footing it right from the start, recommend them on to somebody who is doing that, but, make friends with people so that they can take you on that journey as well. So, I've always thought that, the best outcome for a client is when there's a bookkeeper who's in the accounts daily, who's, being the one that's able to raise the red flags, and they're also working alongside the accountant who might have that better advisory positioning, etc. But really, the other place to start is what's happening in your own business. Like, give yourself some cash flow advisory and do some cash flow planning for yourself. Find a bookkeeper friend and do it together. I know we don't like sharing numbers with each other. It's like, flashing our underwear around, but like, find somebody who you can actually start to have those interactions with, and practice. I'm pretty sure we've all got a super friendly client who'd be happy just to have a chat, and under the guise of, like, I'm not even trying to sell you anything, I just want to practice talking about cash flow. And so the best way you can do it is just to try, get started, find a friendly way to do it.
Fantastic. Some good points there. And one thing I've found is that business owners love nothing more than talking about their business, what's working, what's not. And so the conversation itself shouldn't be a hard thing. So
I bet just one interesting thing. Irene and I were talking about this the other day, but I bet you any client who doesn't, or for one-off or regularly doesn't pay your bill on time, has a cash flow timing issue. So the irony of the person who's there to help is the person who's being paid last, but it's a great place to start, right? Now, obviously you can get angry about it, but also you can go, hey, why is this going on? What's the reason here?
Fantastic. We are running out of time, so what I'll do is I'll pass back to you, Irene, quickly for 30 seconds or a minute of your hot take and takeaways for the bookkeepers today.
So I'm gonna use this for an unplanned product placement for FundTap. What I really like about the approach with you guys is actually that you can do all of the pre-approval and everything up front, and then that service sits there in the background. You don't have to use it, but it's there when you actually need it. And so I think, in the case of the client that we had, who was doing the insurance work, just gold standard solution for them, because there are very clear invoices that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that they can get finance for to help bridge that gap. And my hot take on that is, if you're a good bookkeeper, you're going to encourage your clients to build the cost of the invoice financing into their charge to whoever it is that takes forever to pay them. That's my hot take.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Irene. It definitely wasn't planned, that one. So
no, I promise it wasn't planned.
Chris?
Hot take?
Hot take?
Where do I start? My hot take for our viewers today is, I think if you are the person who can pick up the phone and have a human conversation with your client, then you are best placed to help them. You are already doing advisory. My challenge to the audience is go looking for better solutions. So rather than pitching you guys FundTap, and I think this is the way to do it, is first of all go, how do I solve this cash flow timing issue? If you land on finance as being a solution, go and test the solutions and go put your black hat on and say, what's the best way to solve this? And if FundTap comes up trumps, which I have a hunch it probably will, then give us a bell.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Irene, for your thoughts and opinions today. Significant amount of change in the bookkeeping community over the last decade, and would expect that to accelerate over the next few years there as well. While that presents some unique challenges, there's also a massive opportunity to actually add value to your clients and to your own businesses there as well. As Chris mentioned, we help businesses with cash flow timing. We're open to a chat if required. But again, want to send a very big thanks to Ken and the team at NZQBA for the time to speak with you guys today. Really appreciate the opportunity and hope that we can provide some value to the bookkeeping community as well. If we don't speak beforehand, we will look forward to seeing you all at conference in a couple of months' time.
Yes, 31st of October.
Fantastic. Thank you again. Good luck picking up the phone, have those conversations, learn about your clients, add value where you can, and both your clients and yourselves, businesses, will win from that.
And don't forget to do Ken's poll.
Yes,
Yeah.
please
Yeah, and
give us your feedback.
that is how I remain Ken's favorite person.
Exactly. Thank you all so much. Thank you, FundTap.
Like
Thank
and
you,
subscribe.
Irene. And please answer the poll before you leave.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.